Okie dokie. Okay, so yesterday I got the running shot cut into the show, and then my beautiful partner pointed out that there were a couple of shots where his foot was sort of trailing out a little farther than it should have been. So I changed that, and then I also added just a simple directional blur, which in this case, because he's moving right across the horizontal axis, it basically functions as motion blur. So that's cool. Well, the next two shots are Akari looking over like that, and then the other guy also noting that they both heard something. When it all comes together, feels pretty good. Okay, so now I'm at the next shot, which is definitely an interesting conundrum. Probably, if I'm really going to do something of a demonstrational nature, then I guess I need to go back a couple steps. Here's the basic deal. Okay, so this is our dialogue, which never gets rendered, and this is our background, which we kind of want to not have to look at. So, save that. Okay, so what happens in this shot is Mr. Big walks in. Well, the problem is that obviously it's kind of stupid to have 5 shots of these guys and the shot of Mr. Big. So step 1 is let's split this off into 2 layers. I mean, that seems pretty painfully obvious to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create this as a regular raster level, because the existing drawings are just a plain old raster level. So let's select just this stuff, cut it out, and paste it in. Okay, so now that's solved. So now we've got this static shot of Akari and the guys hanging out. And by the way, I think if I remember correctly, there's a, well, I don't know. I was going to say there's some stuff in here that needs to be erased, but I think we're actually okay. Yeah, the background is going to have to be scaled though. Anyway, so now we got to deal with Mr. Big. So this is the part that for me is kind of interesting. To make it simple, let's erase these guys for the moment as well. Okay. And let's look at what we've got here. Yeah. So I probably don't need to do this, but just for simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and just go through these shots real quick and get rid of this stuff that is erroneous. Whoops, that didn't quite do the trick, did it? Okay, just hitting the S key. Okay, so now it's all about Mr. Big. Now here's the problem. The reality is that Mr. Big walks in pretty, slowly. We hear, okay, obviously footsteps don't sound like that. I don't even know if you could hear that. I was tapping the desk. But the point is, he's coming in pretty slowly. Well, what we have in the animatic is this, and the indication is that he's actually covering a fair amount of real estate with every step. Okay? So that's a little problematic. So step 1 is, what I want to do is give myself as much flexibility in timing out his walk as possible. And the way I'm going to do that is, first of all, this shot is useless. Let's get rid of it. That one's good. That one's good. Yeah, that one's good. This one is actually the one that's sort of critical, because this is where he lands when he's all done moving. So let's, okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's grab these 2 cells, and let's just push these guys like way out. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to move these over to another pair of levels. Let me see what we have here. Okay. Sorry. Getting a little confused here. Oh, obviously that's the background. Duh. So really all I need to do is take this one cell and just put it out of the way. I'm just going to put it, I'm actually going to put it up above. Okay, and we'll call this Mr. Big Stops. Okay, so why am I doing it this way? Well, my goal is actually to create what amounts to almost like a lip sync situation where I've got a series of drawings that I'm going to be able to just toggle between to convey the walking, and then I'm thinking just use either the transform tool or even the plastic tool to go ahead and move him around. Okay, so that suggests the following. Number one, in my prefs, I need to make sure that I am okay. That's fine. So I'm set to animate on twos. Okay. So now to make this a little more sane, let me get rid of these guide markers that were here from earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come over to this level and I'm going to add a new drawing. I don't really need that, but I'm going to add a new drawing and just make it bright red, and all I'm doing here is, okay, that's interesting. Why would, am I seeing this wrong? Oh, here's part of the problem. Boom. Okay. Okay, that was actually stupid because I want this actually to be over here. Okay, so let me drag this down. Please, OpenToonz. I hate the way you can't just drag and you can't click and drag. Okay, that's perfect actually. Okay, what I wanted to do here is just have a guide so I remember what his starting position was. So now we can just get rid of that. Obviously we can come back to it later. So that means, having done that, I can go ahead and turn the grid on. What I want to do is take this drawing, because remember, like I said, I just made a mental note of where his starting position was. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these drawings and center them, so that theoretically I could just toggle between them. Okay. Okay, I feel like I want a fourth drawing, so I'm going to hit the D key. Hello. OpenToonz is having to think for a minute, apparently. Okay. Now, it's actually working in my favor that this is a standard raster level, because it kind of makes it easy to just kind of go through and start tweaking things. Alright. One thing I am noticing, though, I started noticing this yesterday. You see what's happening? All of a sudden, for no explicable reason, OpenToonz is having to really think. I mean, you got 1.5 gigs of memory being used. That's not like ridiculously exorbitant. But yeah, I've just been kind of noticing this proclivity of OpenToonz to act a little funny when it comes to just drawing and editing on plain old raster levels, which is weird because you'd think that would be the most efficient type of level to deal with, since it's just a basic flat pixel range. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this back a little bit, and then like I said, the cool thing here is it's not always the way you want to do it, but for right now I can just sample the colors and just quickly make these additional drawings. And so what I'm wanting to do is kind of give an indication here that he is stepping forward. All right. Okay, and what I'm thinking I would want to do here is grab this section and just rotate it a little bit. And now I can fill this in. I should probably be using a brush that's more like a paintbrush. Okay, so now that's interesting. Stop a minute. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be problematic. Alright, and the explanation here, by the way, is that his shadow was baked into this drawing vis-a-vis taking the earlier Toons raster level of the character and another Toons raster level of the shadow and baking them together in an image sequence. So the image sequence has transparency baked into it, but using a Toons raster level, there's actually no simple way to paint transparently. And I don't think it does me any good to do this. Yeah, it doesn't. So, okay, that's a new wrinkle that I hadn't considered. I would say the simple solution is pretty darn simple. And the simple solution is, let's just get rid of the shadow. We'll redo the shadow later, because all it's doing is creating problems at this point. So yeah, make a mental note. If you're going to deal with plain old raster levels, don't do it in a way that's dependent on areas that are partially transparent that you might have to change later. Bumping into that problem actually makes it tempting to go ahead, just for fun, to do this scene, this shot, I mean, in Krita. It would be an interesting exercise, and sometime soon I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing some animation in Krita just to shake things up a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to go ahead and tilt him a little more. Okay, and then I'm going to... I love what you can do with the selection tool in OpenToons. I like the way you can just quickly pound this stuff out. Okay, so now I'm going to sample this and move this forward even a little bit more. Sort of the indication that the guy's taking a step. Right, and of course, he's so small on the screen that we don't have to worry about the outlines and stuff. You're never gonna see it. I mean, it's not only is he small on the screen, but he's tiny, but he's also it's kind of a dark environment as well. So okay. So that's kind of an interesting pose. What seems to be missing here is he's stepping forward with his left foot there, so I'm going to stretch that out one. And let me just check something here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, Control C. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, now this is going to be B key, so it's a new drawing, and then I'm going to hit S key, Control V, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to, I think I've got this right, I'm going to flip this vertically. Yeah. Okay, and then make like that. Again, we're trying to center his head, but I think that's fine. Obviously, there's a little bit of fuzziness that was introduced by the scaling operation, but again, I just don't think that's something you're going to notice. Okay, so now what I want to do is just check if this creates a loop, a nice loop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select that area. I'm going to set my frame rate down to, let's just do like 4. Okay, hit the L key. Yeah, he's kind of got a little bit of a limp, which I like. I really like that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, let's see, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so 4 frames per second. Let's look at 6 and see what that feels like. I think it should be, let's split the difference and do 5s. Let's see how that feels. I don't know. To me, Mr. Big walking in the room requires a very relaxed, almost ominous pace. So we're going to do 4. That means that every one of these frames needs to be on what? 6s. Yes, you guessed it. And if you want it to be on 6s, probably the way to do that is to do it on 3s and then take that batch of frames and put it on 2. I think that works. Let's find out. So let's do step 3, and then let's select this and do step 2. Yep, that worked. So that put it on 6s, which is exactly what we wanted. And now we can select this whole thing. And I think presumably we're going to probably run the whole cycle at least twice. I mean, you figure if this guy's... I'm actually going to get up and time this out. Seems to me that each step takes about 1.5 seconds. Is that right? Well, let's just do the math here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drawings that are going for 6 frames each. So that's 30 frames. That means it's a little over 1 second per step. Okay, so just to make sure that we're not goofing up too badly here, let's go ahead and set this back to 24 frames a second. Not 27, silly. Okay, let's just see. Okay, that actually looks really good. Okay, I'm liking it. Okay, so now, if the guy's going to take maybe 6 steps, so we're giving it a little time to let the score and the situation sort of build a little bit. This is a tense situation. Who the heck's walking in this room and is about to surprise everyone? So, given that, this has to stretch out for at least 6 seconds. So, he's going to have to take at least 5 steps. Okay. Okay, so the actual walk cycle is from 65 to 100. What's the first frame? Number 69? Looks like it. So now I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to find, I think I'm going to find 69. So there's 1. Okay. That's the range I want. So what I need to do is delete these. Silly me. Okay, 69. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now let's do the math. Well, we said he's going to take half a dozen steps, and we've already got 2 in there, so why don't we just use the repeat? Save ourselves some calculations and just be smart about it. And we're going to repeat this 4 times. That was easy. Okay. So set the stop marker there. set the start marker here, and okay, 4 is enough. All right, so we're going to go from here to here, kill it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we already made a note of his starting position, and okay, and we already determined this is his finish position. Okay, so let's do the B key. And I really am making my life more difficult than it needs to be. So hello, drag please, thank you. Okay, so what I want to do here is, okay, Z key. Sorry guys. Mr. Big stops. And this is Mr. Big's actual stop position. And I want to not confuse things. So here, what we had was, we just had red. Okay, and all we're doing here now is we're just marking this spot as well. Okay, so now we've marked his starting and end locations. Great. We could have done that with markers, obviously. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the opacity of this down. So that tells us where we're supposed to begin and end. Okay. So now presumably this is Mr. Big. His stop position needs to happen when he stops. So if I'm correct, we should be able to put this here, and then let's just say this is going to hold for half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds. Okay, so there's the stop marker. So now what we want to do is let's take our guide and let's just fill in the whole space, because this is going to give us the guide for our animation data. Okay, so let's save this. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to protect myself in the sense that I want to make sure I give myself a way to back out of this later if I make a mistake. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a second column for the animation data. I'm going to animate him on another column and connect them through the schematic, and that way if I feel like it sucks or whatever, I can always just disconnect it and throw that away. So insert key, and I'm going to just hit the B key so that we've created a frame here. Not going to actually draw on it. So this is, I'm just going to call this move, because this is the column I'm going to use to move Mr. Big. So here we have Mr. Big. Alright, and here we have our background. And here we have our dialogue. And I'm curious if I have, oh, there we go. I'll just call this Akari, even though obviously the ninjas are there too. That's okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the, well, actually what we're going to do is, and this is, if there's something to be learned from this video, this is probably the thing to be learned if you're kind of new to OpenTunes, but I'm going to take this move level, and then I'm going to take Mr. Big, patch that into there. Okay, so now we need to turn on Mr. Big. Now if I animate, hit the animate tool, I can put Mr. Big here, and then down here's the spot where he stops. Really, it should probably end there. And I'm going to say that probably he should rotate as well. Okay. Okay, and Z, 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 Z. Okay, I've changed my mind about something. This really needs to look choppier. I'm almost going to say what we really want is for this to be split up about half the resolution of the steps. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each one's 6 frames. So if I have this correct, I believe I want my animation steps to be 3. Let's give that a crack. Okay. So now I'm going to go here and adjust this position to here. And then here. Rotate this. Okay, and actually I want this position to be not quite his finishing position, because obviously there's another step there. We'll deal with the shadow later, in case you're wondering about that. So, okay, some obvious pathetic problems, but readily fixed. Okay, so now I'm going to say it needs to be even choppier. So the way we'll do that is, let's go in here, and we're just going to go to the move column and look at the position. Or wait, well, I mean the rotation I think we can leave. But the east-west data, okay, if we click here, this is going to go screwy. So let's rewind to the top so that now these guys are going to be synchronized. Right. Okay, this wants to be on 6s. Step. Changing the step to 6s, that's going to make the actual movement have a granularity that is half of what it was. Okay, not bad. Okay, my sense is that it's all just a little too slow. So I'm going to retreat from my earlier position, and I'm going to put this on 5s instead of 6s. Actually, you know what? Let's leave that one. And for the sake of testing, let's just work on the first cycle, because we can always extend it out. Alright, and let's put it on 4s. And just see how that feels. Okay. Well, actually, I guess that does need to go there. Okay. So through to 69. We're going to get rid of this. We need to get up to 196. Well, actually, that's not true. Do we have the repeat? Let's just do 5 of these. And see how that feels. I'm going to leave the granularity of the animation itself on 6s for the moment. Yeah, okay, so he needs to move faster. So that's easy. This is where using animation data is kind of cool. We'll just drag this up and let's just put it somewhere and see how we like it. Okay, that feels slightly fast. I'm going to go with that. Okay. So now the way we're going to accommodate it from here, whoops, is I'm just going to hit Alt up and then, okay. Now I can kill these. We don't need those. Okay, and ends at 213. Okay, so now, obviously, this can be extended. I got a question. Just looking at the timing of Mr. Big walking in, I'm trying to find the sweet spot for the pacing, but I'm thinking something like that. Not too fast, not too slow. Yeah, okay, cool. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks. Cool, cool, cool. So sometimes it helps to get that other set of eyes, doesn't it? Okay, here's our background. Okay, yeah, the problem with the background is that the shadows are baked in. So that means we have to kill that and extend just this one frame all the way down to the bottom. There we go. Okay, not bad. While we're here, let's disencropulate that, and I think what we need to do is just change the DPI here back to 120, I believe. Yeah, that did the trick. Okay, and so it shows us pretty clearly some things that need to be tweaked on this drawing, but I think actually one of the, let's look at what it looks like rendered. Okay, so what we really need to do here is let's check our level settings, pre-multiply. Yep, see, there we go. By turning pre-multiply on, it got rid of that erroneous white line that we were seeing. Okay, now this is kind of interesting. It's kind of a bummer, actually. Why the heck is my... Why are my shadows where they are? That's the question. Let's close up Mr. I know why. I do know why. Yes. Because I had decided to... I'm pretty sure that I had decided to position these guys like that. It doesn't really make sense, though. If we do that, then Akari doesn't have her shadow. So this is kind of unfortunate. Okay? We'll just call it what it is. Unfortunate. Because what we need to do is get some shadows in there, and the best way to do that, because again, this painting is, the shadows are baked into the painting. So what do you do when your shadows are baked into your painting? There's a few things we could do. When I created this background painting, I was moving fairly fast, so I suspect I do not have the Krita file. So therefore, welcome to the real world. It's all about just creative problem solving. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint over this. And let's save all. It does suggest that, generally speaking, having your shadows, especially if characters might move, having your shadows baked into your backgrounds is probably a pretty bad policy. So, don't know what I was thinking. But then again, it's been quite a while since this painting was done, like kind of a long time. So I'm going to go minus 1.5 on my paintbrush size. I'm using my oil paintbrush, which is kind of what I've used for most of this type of background painting stuff. And I'm just going to paint the shadows out. Okay. So, pretty straightforward. If it introduces a little bit of variability in the look of the boards on the floor, that's okay. That's actually kind of a good thing, actually. Did I just say the word actually like 5 times in a row? This brush is kind of nice because it sort of dances between being a paintbrush and a blend brush. So it lets me kind of just blend the colors pretty readily. Okay. Now having a shadow for that is fine, since that's not actually a character. That's part of the environment. Okay. So that was actually pretty quick to fix, wasn't it? All right, let's turn Akari back on. And now what we'll do is, just to keep it simple, we'll do a shadow layer for these guys, and then we'll do a separate shadow layer for Mr. Big. Okay, so so I'm just gonna hit the fill tool. Alright, same thing here for her. I might be... Actually, you know what I think? I think I'm going to be less aggressive with these shadows in terms of how far back they go. Just because I really would... It'd kind of be easier if they weren't impinging on Mr. Big's space. But then again, if Mr. Big's going to land here, yep, there's no avoiding it. Forget what I just said. I might as well just do whatever. So, let's just get this. What I'm probably going to do is let Mr. Big go over the shadows, which technically doesn't make sense. But, as I've said repeatedly, this is an anime, and it is also... sorry, can't talk and paint at the same time. It's also a fairly dark environment. What I'm saying is we're talking about details that are going to be completely lost on the audience. Okay. Okay, I like that. So now, what's the transparency? 85, or the alpha, I should say. Okay, so this is going to be shadow A. Let's call this shadow A. Let's stretch shadow A all the way to the bottom of the scene. Okay. Now, what's interesting about shadow B, excuse me, this is going to be shadow big, which means Mr. Big's shadow. But you knew that. Okay, so now this is actually going to be kind of interesting. What we're going to have to do is map this to Mr. Big. And so the best way to do that is to come in here and take our move, and let's undo that connection. See, remember when I said earlier that we might have a scenario where we want to unconnect these? Well, guess what? We just hit it. Because what we want to do is do all the shadows here. Okay, so B key, I'm going to grab this brush, and I'm just going to do the same thing with Mr. Big that I did with everybody else. Okay, like so. And we're going to be consistent here. That has an alpha of 85. And now what we'll do is for each of Mr. Big's frames, we'll just change it up a little bit. Okay, so we'll just give it a little bit of variety. All right, D key, again, slight change. D key, again, slight change. D key, we got, what, 2 more to do? Okay, that's it. So now what we want to do is go down here, delete that, grab this sequence, and okay, and OpenTunes. Okay, I'm going to say that OpenTunes is inconsistent in how it does this. Half the time it does what you expect, which is you grab these, and if you extend them down, it just repeats them. I don't have enough instances of doing that where it does that versus doesn't do that, because here obviously it's not doing it. It's giving me a bunch of red frames, which suggests there's missing drawings. And how can there be missing drawings when I just created this level? It's a brand new level, and I only created these drawings. And by the way, while we're on the subject, well, I guess the reason it started with number 65 is because it's on frame 65, so I guess I can live with that. But so what I found is that the drag and drop, or not the drag and drop, but the dragging behavior in the X sheet is so inconsistent in whether it sort of behaves as advertised that I've given up on it and taken to just using the repeat tool. So there it is. Go. The repeat tool seems to work consistently. Okay, so there's that. So now what we need to do is map the, okay, and by the way, we do see there is an issue here with the shadows that maybe, I don't know if that's going to bite us in the butt or not, but anyway, I'm going to open up this again, and here I've got the move, so I'm going to patch Mr. Big through the move, but I'm also going to do shadow Big. I want his shadow to be patched through the animation as well, and that will okay, so there's an obvious issue there. Okay, the best way to deal with what I'm seeing on the angle of the lighting is just to go to the shadow and just put one key right here with the animate tool. Let's do a rotation. Let's just put one key to correct for that. Okay, so there we go. Now, we're not going to animate that at all. That's just for correction. And that's often what I'll do is, do the animation on a separate level just to be safe. And then any animation that's on the character's own level is just to correct things, move things around, get the initial position correct. Okay. So this issue that we have right here is in fact a thing, but I don't know if it's enough of a thing to care about. It seems to me, gosh, there's a couple ways we could go. One is to say, well, this light coming in the window is kind of harsh anyway. I see what the problem is. Okay, I'm going to have to break my own rule. I'm going to have to break my own rule. Here's why. In the animation column, I introduced a rotation for his body. Well, guess what? I don't know if you ever noticed this, but shadows don't rotate. Okay. So let me check something here. Hello. Oh, function editor opened in a different window. Okay. Okay, his animation is on step 6. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break my own rule right now. I'm going to go... Is it Control U? Yeah. I'm going to put this on 6s. So I'm going to have default animation keys on 6s. Oh, criminy. Let's take that off. Okay. Let's just check this. Yeah, we can't have that. We can't have the shadow rotate like that. So, like I said, I'm breaking my own rule right now. Let me go here. Again, animate tool. Okay, what's interesting here is, yeah. Why is the animate tool? There it is. It was staying on right here. It was staying on the move column instead of the shadow column, which is a little bit problematic. So I'm checking the center. Okay, the center is right where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is rotate here. Breaking my own rule. There it is. Okay. Now is Mr. Big falling under their shadow? He is. Okay. So that tells me that here, honestly, I think we need to just reposition this. I think we need to just position this guy here. Go like that, and then go like that. Okay, because we want Mr. Big to fall under their shadows. So what I was going to say earlier is, because of the way the sunlight is, let's just make the shadows darker, and that will make the difference between the shadows less obvious. So there we go. Alright. I'm going to actually hit the... Okay, now OpenToonz is acting stupid. I hit the render and nothing. I get the classic blank screen, which isn't fun. Okay, so let's kill the guide. Kill the guide. Why do I still see it? Why do I still see the guide? I find this quite confusing. That guide right there. Why is that still there? Why do I still see it? When? Okay. Sorry folks, but I am getting confused here. What was the guide? I named these wrong. I named them wrong. Trying to keep track of too many things in my head all at the same time. Okay, turn that off, and it certainly doesn't want to be rendered. Mr. Big stops. Okay. So now what we need to do is take this guy, and since, okay, I really don't want to do that. If I'm going to use the animate tool, let's use it correctly. So let's rotate him. Let's put his center where it should be. Let's rotate him around. We can't. We can't because his shadow rotates. And his shadow is a different color as well. So, well, what does this tell you? This underscores the danger of baking. Well, we're going to solve this right now. We're going to solve it with prejudice. Okay? Now, I'm going to get rid of that. What if we take this, move it back in here? Okay. Definitely not. So what we need to do is just get this positioned correctly. So let's hit the animate tool. I'm gonna okay. So now Mr. Big's shadow needs another drawing right here. Boom. And that's going to be B key up. There it is. Okay. I think that did the trick. Okay, so the only thing that's really egregious is that transition right through there. So are we going to really throw out the baby with the bathwater and say everything's a total loss because of the fact that the shadows, the density of the shadows are effectively doubled right there? Nope. It actually, when it's all rendered together, it looks pretty good. I like the way he falls under their shadows, so let me just... Okay. This needs to be extended out to the bottom of the scene. And let's save that. Let's hit Control R and see if it's going to still be stupid. And it is. So the zoom is essentially 100%. Oh, there it is. Yeah, see, I've seen this. I was actually seeing this symptom constantly with the latest official 1.3 version of OpenToonz. Right here and right now is the first time I've ever seen it in OpenToonz Experimental. So, I'm going to go ahead and kill this, reopen it, and I'm going to say that it's almost guaranteed to fix the problem. So, yeah, this scene has been replete with interesting challenges. But, at the end of the day, looks good. Yeah, it looks good. Nothing more to say. Okay. So I'm wondering, what is this garbage over here? Okay. My suspicion Okay, my suspicion was correct. Alright. So now I'm thinking about... Yes, because in the next shots, Mr. Big is appearing over Akari's left shoulder, so this is correct. I had to get the staging right, you know. Alright, so... with that, let's render it. And that appears to have worked just fine. And OpenTunes tends to have to think for a bit before it lets us go ahead and see the file. Save dialog. Anime. Render. Okay, I want this to be a list. And this is going to be shot 0053.mp4. Should render fairly quickly, I think. Meh. Well, it's a pretty long scene, so. See, you know, while it's rendering, I want to point something out here. This is something I've been seeing ever since I installed OpenTunes, the official release. Okay, I never saw this when I just used this version of OpenTunes called OpenTunes Experimental, which I got vis-a-vis Jeremy Bullock, aka Turtletooth. This has been by far the most stable version of OpenTunes I've ever used. Ever since I went ahead and installed the official release alongside, I've had this situation where there's like a phantom version of OpenTunes running in the background, and by the way, you can't kill it. If you click the X key or Control F4, nothing happens. It won't die. I have to kill it through the task manager. So the question might be, well, what do you gain if you have the official 1.3 version installed? And the answer is, as near as I can tell, the ARC tool seems to work reliably in Tunes raster levels, and you do have the ability with the official release to change your animation default interpolation to constant. Honestly, I've gotten better results generally by setting the animation step to 2, so everything's animated on 2s, but you know, so the constant interpolation as a default. I like my workaround better than having it as a default. I just set the animation step to whatever I want. So if I want it to be constant interpolation, I just set the step to like 2000, and that means that if between these two frames something moves, like that, if the animation step is set to 2000, then what that means is that in order for any interpolation between here and here to occur, in other words, it's going to generate intermediate animation steps, there would have to be 2000 frames between the two keys. So I set my step to 2 most of the time so that if I'm moving stuff, it's getting animated on 2s. But as you saw in this, sometimes 3s, 4s, or 6s, work better. Not that 5s don't. 5s are okay too. But, anywho, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go... the upshot of that story was that I am not... The official release of OpenTunes is, in my opinion, buggier, more unstable, and more sporadic in various ways than this version that I've been using for several months. So there it is. Okay, so now we have our little... Let's just back up to here and see how things feel. Obviously, he's referring to Mr. Big. Okay, what's a little strange here, and it's kind of sad actually, this is a throwback to the whole pencil test stage a long time ago. As far as I'm concerned, this run cycle, which was a great exercise, I'm certainly glad I did it, but basically it's stupid. Why is there a run cycle? What should be happening is we should be seeing we should be seeing the feet of a robed figure walking, and walking heavily, so that obviously so that they can hear that something's about to happen. But it seems ridiculous to me that you're seeing this guy running, and then all of a sudden Mr. Big sort of strolls in. What kind of sense does that make? And honestly, we'll revisit this one later, but I actually wonder if it wouldn't make more sense to take this whole scenario, push it over to about here, and then have Mr. Big just come up this way, just come in. Why is he walking all the way across the scene? So that's just food for thought. I don't think it has to be solved right now. I'd mentioned yesterday that it turns out this episode's going to be a good maybe 12 minutes or something, and I'm wrong. It's not. Turns out that my partner has actually written the entire episode, and it turns out this episode is going to be a full 24-minute episode. Okay, I'm cool with that. Let's rock and roll. Turns out she's got 3 episodes written already, and I didn't even know it. So, nice job, baby doll. That might have sounded like a sort of, I don't know, potentially disparaging use of a nickname. It's not. I actually call her baby doll all the time, and it's a designation. It's an affectionate designation. Yeah, I just don't. I'm glad I did the run cycle. It was a really educational experience, but why in the heck do you have a guy running and then he strolls in? That makes no sense. So this shot has to be redone. That's funny. So anyway, okay, that's it for now then. Pretty happy with this shot. I do feel like the animation of Mr. Big feels a bit choppy. It feels like Rankin Bass stop motion animation, because it seems to me, and I suspect that could be fixed by just redoing the drawings and making sure, just like I did with the run cycle actually. When I did the run cycle, because I knew he was actually going to stay in place and the background was going to move behind him. So what I did was I made sure that this part of his, his pelvis was always in the same spot, basically. Okay, it moves up and down a little bit, but it's left to right, it basically doesn't move too much. I think that's what we need to do here. We need to center the drawings on his head, because right now he's moving like a rooster. He's actually kind of doing this as he walks, which looks stupid, especially considering who the character is. Like right there, you can see his head pop forward. That's not really working. So my suspicion is that's what's causing this sort of, that whole rooster thing isn't happening. So I'm going to put that on my to-do list. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and kill the live stream or the screen recording, and as you know, I'll definitely be back later.